So by now we have already created a GitHub account, we have created a CodePen account, and now we should be ready to host a web page. In the past, we provided students with space online to publish websites, but nowadays we just do everything on GitHub. It's a free resource, and it's fairly easy to use, I should say. So let me go to github.com and be sure that you're logged in. I'm still logged in from my previous session. My username is sort of hidden away here. If I right click, I see that I'm signed in as ITSE 1411. I have lots of options here to go through. I'm not gonna touch any of that right now. I may be showing you some of the stuff there later. In the meantime, though, on the left, I can see that I have no repositories on my GitHub. So I need to create the first one. I'll click on the green button to create a repository. And a repository is just basically a directory online. And this shouldn't be any different than creating a directory on your desktop. And actually, we will be using some desktop directories once we connect GitHub to Atom. I'll show you where everything is sort of hidden away so that you can keep track of your work and your projects, not only in GitHub, but also on your personal computer. Currently, it's telling me that I am the owner, so my directory is called ITSE 1411 on GitHub. If I were to use github.com/my username, it would show me the contents of my repositories. But here I don't have a repository yet, so I'm going to create the first one. And in order for you to use your GitHub account as a website, you're going to need to use your username as the first part of your repository. Hopefully you've used all lowercase and no spaces. If you haven't, I would truly recommend going back and maybe changing your account or getting a new one so that you didn't end up with something like originally I wanted to call this ITSE 1411, and even though it tells me that it's available, that's not what I want, because this is going to be my website as well. My website, I want to be my username, which is all lowercase ITSE 1411. If I wanted to have something called F. Rodriguez, which is already taken, by the way, then I would just type in F. Rodriguez like that. The second and third part of your repository name after your username should be a dot. The github.io extension there, so that ITSE 1411.github.io, not only will it be the name of this repository, this will actually be the URL that I'll follow once my website is ready to code. I'll scroll down. It's asking for an optional description, and that's up to you. If you put in a description here, you can always change it later. If you don't put one in now, you can add it later if you want. I'll just put in something generic like this is the online space for my ITSE 1411 class. I'll make it public. If you make it private, you have to jump through a couple of hoops to go back and change it, and it might cause some problems. So just keep it on public. One thing to know about this is that anybody in the world can see the content of your website, unless you pay GitHub, for a more private account setup. But there's not going to be any secrets published in this website, and all of my GitHub repositories are public, so I can tell you that there's no problem with that. I'm going to add a README file. It's not just like everything else. It's optional. You can add a description for your projects as you go along. You can add a git ignore if you want. I would just skip that for now. And I'll choose a license. You don't have to. You can have no license, or simply add one of the more general licenses to use. The one that I prefer is the MIT license. And actually, once we have our website, you'll see what the license is. Now that I've gone through all those options, I'll click on Create Repository, and this will actually create the folder in GitHub for me, so that the next time that I go to github.com, and I'll just revisit github.com, on the left side I see that now I have a repository. I'll click on it. It'll take me there, and it'll show me basically a list of files here. It's got the license that I asked it to create, a readme.md, which is what you see right away on the on the page for the repository. What's cool is that also you see here that it says this is the online space for ITSE 1411. That later on, using a different markup language, we're going to use HTML for our course. But if you want to use Markdown later, you can actually keep on adding instructions or directions, or even create another web page inside of that readme.md. MD starts for Markdown. I'll go back to ITSE 1411. Actually, I'm already there. I'm going to create a new file just so that this is a quote-unquote real page. So I'll click on Add File right here and tell it to create a new file. This new file, because it's going to be basically the anchor of my website, it's going to be inside of my root folder, which is the main folder of my website. I'm going to call index.html. And this is a very standard practice, is that if you call a file index.html or even index.htm, that is going to be what the browser is looking for. I'm not going to do any fancy coding here. As I have mentioned before in class, HTML is a very forgiving language, so all I need to do here for now is just to say hello world, this is, and then I'll put in my name, Francisco's page. This will change soon enough with real code. I'll scroll down. By the way, all this space right here could be filled with code, and this is a code editor. It's online, and it'll show you what it's going to look like if you click on the preview. It'll tell you, okay, well, if you commit it, it's just hello world, this is Francisco's page, and not much more. I'll scroll down to commit this new file. This is not necessarily a saving option, but it does save it out to your repository. I will explain more about Git and commits later when we are actually working with more files. I'll click on the Commit New File button here. I'll keep the default options that were there. And I'll scroll down a little bit, and I see now that I have a file called index.html. In the commit, the computer automatically added create index.html. That's what happened at this commit stage, and it happened now. Well, it happened, less than a minute ago, and it gives me the date there and the time of when it happened. It tells me a little bit about the project on the side, and I'm just talking a lot so that I'm actually allowing the server, the GitHub server, to take the file that I just typed in and publish it online. In order to figure out where this is going, this is my URL. As I said, ITSE 1411, no spaces, no capital letters, .github.io. Remember in another video I said there's github.io and there's github.com. Your URL, the one where your website's going to live, is .io, and .com, where your files are, where all of your backend projects are going to go, is in the .com space. I'm going to open up a new tab just so that I can have access to the window I just had open, and I'll type in my username, .github.io, and press enter. And because I gave it some time, it's now actually printed. Hello world, this is Francisco's page, which is what I wanted to see. I don't know why it's in such large type. I think it's added like an H1 or something. Let me right click and view the page source. No, it's just that I think I'm just zoomed in a little bit. Oh, I'm way zoomed in. Let me zoom out to 100%. That's what the page should look like. Something like that. But this is your first web page. So at the end of this assignment, even though you have already typed in some content, that's going to be changing soon enough in the next assignment, which you might have already completed by the time that I grade everything. I may not be able to see your first ever comment online, but rather the contents of the next assignment. Make sure that you turn in the URL, which is going to be this one. It's going to be your username.github.io, and since I'm in Chrome, I can simply just select everything there and copy it and turn it in the eCampus assignment. At the bottom, you can just say make a comment or type in some text so that I know what it is. And the next assignment, we will actually be getting some text and adding some actual HTML to your web page.